So this is day 20 of the videos that I'm making to raise awareness and understanding of PTSD, and today I'm talking a little bit about the experience of living with PTSD. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a bit more about supporting people with PTSD. The first thing I wanted to say about today's talk is that everyone's experience is unique and individual to themselves and is valid. So just because I may not mention something that people have experienced or do experience, that does not mean that that experience isn't valid. Absolutely not. What I'm covering today is absolutely not exhaustive, and it is not exclusive. It is the broadest of brushes of what that experience can be like. So I wanted to really make sure I emphasise that. So if we think about what we've talked about so far about PTSD in terms of the different elements that make up that experience, of that trauma response, around the hypervigilance, the flashbacks, the changes to mood, the way that kind of your old brain can hijack your mind and take over and either put you back into that situation, or trigger off a panic attack or dissociation or rage. There's a lot of that sense of being out of control again, and that in itself can be really difficult to live with. So people are not only living with having those different experiences, having had that trauma and those trauma responses, they've now got that added fear of, when's the next time I'm going to have a flashback? You know, if I go out and I have a flashback or a panic attack, what are people going to think? How am I going to manage? And so fear of the fear, or fear of the PTSD experience, can be another layer of distress added on that can also close people's worlds down. So then we've got, if we think about someone's window of tolerance, actually there's always that fear of, will this push me out of my window of tolerance or not? And that in itself can be really, really difficult to live with and can help disconnect us. And I've talked a little bit about how trauma disconnects us, and it also silences us. It's not something we talk about, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, but it's not something that we routinely go, oh hi, how's your PTSD? We just don't do that. Part of that is probably our Britishness, part of that is like, what if they tell me? How do I manage that? So that's why I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. There is also huge stigma, and that stigma will quite often be really deeply internalised. So we're not only getting the outside world saying you should be coping, your trauma wasn't severe enough, you know, you're mentally unstable. We don't just only have that. We have our inner critical voice quite often saying all of that and worse. You know, you're weak, you're a failure. So that can be really difficult to live with and kind of cut us off from other people and cut us off from ourselves. And PTSD and trauma can also impact, it doesn't just live in our mind, it kind of lives in our whole body, whereby it can impact the immune system, it can make people potentially more susceptible to autoimmune diseases, but also just more sensitive to what's going round, you know, in terms of bugs and things like that. And it can even, people have pain that kind of lives on in the body long past the physical cause being healed, because it has lived on in the nervous system. So living with PTSD is really hard. And I think that's the main thing I wanted to say, is there's a lot going on, not just the experience itself, but then how we appraise the experience. So that's me for today. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we could all help support people who may have experienced these traumas. So I'll see you tomorrow.